This is the Literacy Mindset Podcast, where education leaders discuss identifying and removing phonological barriers with Mindplay's CEO, Jeff Pendleton.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited for another episode of the Literacy Mindset today. Excited for my guest, Miss Danieli Parker, who is the Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology at Hallsville ISD in East Texas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Excited to have you. Excited to talk about things that you have going on. Obviously, as a leader of both technology and innovation, and having been on the instructional side, I think you're going to offer a unique perspective as we go down this. But why don't you maybe orient the audience to you as an educator and kind of what path you took to getting into the seat you're in today?
Yes. So I have been in education for over 20 years. I started off as an elementary teacher in third grade, and then worked as a classroom teacher, worked on my master's, and got my first job as an assistant principal really young. I had only taught 5 years, but still got the job. Was an assistant principal for 3 years, and then I stepped into the role as principal and was able to be a principal through the pandemic, through coming back and reopening our schools. And then I stepped into a newly created role, Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology, after COVID. Like a lot of other schools, we quickly realized that the integration of technology maybe wasn't at the level that it needed to be yet, and the support for teachers and students. And so our district created this position, and I've loved it.
Okay. That is a unique way of getting there, having been a principal through probably the most difficult time in the last century of education, and then coming out on the other side and now heading up innovation and technology. That's great. Can you just tell us a little bit about Hallsville in general, orient us to the district, about how big, where is it at?
So Hallsville is a really tiny town, but we're a big school. So we have about 5,000 students. We have 6 campuses. We are definitely over in the piney woods of Texas, closer to Louisiana. So we're east of Dallas. What's unique about Hallsville, too, though, is that we do have a virtual school called TIVA that services students virtually. So I don't necessarily work directly with the teachers at TIVA, but I do get to work with like a TIVA representative that works in our district. And so they fall under our district, but my main role is to support our brick and mortar, our kids that are actually in the building with us, but I still get to collaborate with our virtual school.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll dive in and talk about a couple of different things, I'm sure, but walk us through as you come into this role after having been a principal, having survived this chaos of a pandemic and the things that we learned. What were some things that you wanted to think about or do right away as you think about literacy? You and I talked about it being such a foundational piece to everything that happens inside of the district. How did you think about innovation or technology and literacy? Walk us through maybe some of those thoughts.
So, Jeff, I think that we have to always remember the foundations of literacy. And having been an elementary principal, our focus was, the early grades, teaching kids how to read.
Right.
Like we knew that if they did not leave really first grade with a strong foundation of how to read, then when we start making that shift in second grade of going from how to read to reading to learn, it was going to be a hard transition, and working on those comprehension skills are going to be really hard when you have kids that can't decode words, right? If they don't have the word attack skills, they're not going to be able to do that. And so my philosophy is we don't do technology for the sake of doing technology. We have to have a purpose behind it. And there are really good practices that technology cannot replace that human connection. They can't replace that feedback and that relationship that I think we learned during COVID a lot of kids need. A lot of students need that personal connection. And I think we did find that there is a group of students that virtual learning and learning off a computer screen works for them, and they can be successful with that. And I love the fact that there are options, there's opportunities, there's schools that offer that, because there are a group of students that need that. But what I saw as an elementary principal is that that wasn't the best learning for a lot of kids. And so when I think about literacy and I think about innovation, I think we have to have a balance between using innovative tools, but not losing foundational pieces. So not doing technology just to say, oh, we do this for technology. So as a principal, we had different options of reading intervention, right? So we did have some interventionists that could pull students into groups. And then we also had some computer programs. Right. And when I would sit down with my RTI committee, and with it's the teachers, it's the interventionists, it's myself, and we're looking at a child's data and we're looking at what do they need. We really had in-depth conversations about what will be best for this child to make the progress that we need to help them get to where they need to be. And sometimes it could have been a computer program, and sometimes it could have been a person that was needed. And so, there's always new shiny toys. There's always all these programs that can look really cool, and they've got these games and they gamify things, and the kids earn these points and they're going to be so excited. But if students aren't making progress on it, then is that really the best tool for that student? And so as we think about innovation, I think we also have to innovate even without technology. How can we excite them and engage them even without technology? And what are some strategies we can do around the table? And so I think sometimes people have a misconception when they hear innovation. They think, oh, it just has to be with technology. And I don't agree with that. I think innovation doesn't always have to be with technology. Let's blend some best practices that have historically worked. And how can we then integrate tools maybe in a fun way that can engage students as well? So it's finding that balance.
No, that's a great point. And I love that take on innovation. It's so easy to rely on technology as the innovation these days. Can you talk us through maybe some specifics around innovation that are not technology focused that you guys are working on?
I'm just trying all sorts of different ideas. Our math classrooms, like we have classrooms that have flipped the math instruction. So, there was a math teacher that he was very traditional, stand in front of the board. I'm going to present this information. You go in his classroom now and he has whiteboards all around his classroom. He's given students problems and they're collaborating, and he's just facilitating the conversation. And so he has really flipped his role as the teacher from being that direct teacher to now a facilitator, and students are being successful. And so just even in his classroom, like 5 years ago, you'd walk in, they were sitting in rows. They would have like those worksheet packets, and they were just kind of like drill and kill, practicing this skill. And now you go in his classroom, it's loud. Students are collaborating, but they're on task. They're talking about the topic, and he is just going around asking probing questions. And then you see students kind of supporting each other and well, I don't agree with that. And here's what I think, and having dialogue and conversation. And to me, that's, rethinking about our classrooms and what does that look like and sound like?
Let's drill into that, because that's fascinating to me. When you think about, the traditional classroom, oftentimes the negative moniker is sage on the stage, someone at the front that's just lecturing or offering up information. And you're saying that some degree of innovation that you've experienced and you guys are working on is simply just thinking of how you interact with students inside of the four walls can be as dramatic of effect as anything.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just thinking outside the box of how we can present information in a different way. One of our librarians for the high school set up a crime scene for, one of the high school CTE courses. And, just thinking about how we can present this information in a different way that excites our students.
Okay. So do you, in your role, is that something that you're kind of pushing from behind, encouraging, feeding different resources for people to think about? Do you put a specific framework in place where you're requiring so many classrooms to look different than traditional classrooms over, the next number of years. What does your goal setting look like, and how do you influence the district?
So that one came from one of our reading consultants, that building a thinking classroom. And so kind of exposing people to that. And then she exposed some interventionist who was married to that high school teacher. And she told her husband, "You're going to read this." And he got really excited. And then he called me and he said, "Danielle, you need to come see this." And so my job is like, when people get excited about things, when they learn about ideas, like, go push in and what can I do to help you? And for him, he just wanted me to see it. He just wanted me to come into his room. And I love it. I love the fact that he opens his classroom up for me and is like, I am so excited. And then we do like a conference in our district. And this is where I really feel like we get to share the innovation. And so in August, teachers get to write proposals to present. And then they share the strategies and things that they're doing in their classrooms, because teachers want to hear from teachers, right? They want to hear from people that are in the classrooms. So when we find people that are trying new things, that are willing to try and embrace different strategies, we encourage them to present and share. And then in August, people get to choose what sessions they go to. So they've got some choice, right? And then they get to go and learn from peers. And it's stuff that they can actually go implement in their classroom. So you have to build that excitement. So we've got to feed the people that are excited about it. We've got to celebrate them. We've got to recognize them, and then encourage them in a safe way to share. And a lot of teachers are scared to do that. They don't think that what they're doing is innovative or creative. They think everybody else is doing it. My job is to go be their cheerleader and say, like, you're doing incredible things. Like, you've got to share this. So now I have teachers who, they did it. They realized I can present like in front of a group of adults. Like, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And now we've got people going to conferences and presenting at conferences. And so again, my job, I'll share ideas with certain people like that I know might like something. I'll be like, "Hey, I found this really cool tool. It made me think of you specifically. Check it out. Let me know what your thought is, or here's an idea. Tell me what you think about it." And I've got people willing to try things. And then they're like, "Oh my gosh, that was so great." And then they've got people that will say, "Well, show me what you did. How'd you learn about that?" And so it's kind of starting a little bit like a little bit of a flame, and then just trying to like pass that on to become a fire, is my role. And this year we started a district podcast. And so I have teachers that I've, have reached out to. And so through the podcast, through our district too, we're sharing different strategies and ideas of ways to engage students, because again, our teachers are incredible and they have amazing ideas, and teachers and staff will listen to other teachers and staff that are in the same role. They don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from their peers. And so how can I capitalize on that? Because Jeff, I'm only one person, and there's 5,000 students.
5,000
I can't go help everybody. So how can I help spread that word and get people excited in different ways? So I have to think creatively on how I share information, because I don't want to become where they see my email and just hit like send to the folder, send to the folder, like, right? Like, I don't want it to be that way. So how do I share information but not drown people in information? And how do I get people excited? And that's the way I found it. And sometimes it's just going to their team meetings. And as they're talking about things, I'm like, "Oh, have y'all tried this strategy? Or there's this really cool idea that I saw that a teacher did in, another town or another city that was in an article. Like, this was a really cool idea that this person did." And sometimes it's just planting those little seeds that no one may say anything at the moment, but they'll email me later and be like, "Hey, can you tell me more about that?" And again, it's just planting little seeds to try to get people to get excited.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love, you probably don't even realize as you're pointing these things out, because sometimes it's hard to articulate them over and over again. But, since, Carol Dweck's work and thinking about growth mindset, so much of that is about kids, right? And how do we give them psychological safety so that they can make mistakes? And if they're able to make mistakes, then they can grow. But you're talking about literally creating a safe environment for teachers, right? To also be able to feel a willingness to try something new, and creating a culture on that. I'm going to ask you about some specifics. You just told me a bunch of them, but I don't know if you've categorized them or thought about them in different types of buckets relative to the specificity that I'm looking for. But I think people want to know, how do you most effectively create psychological safety for teachers so that they can try new things and that that cycle can continue to improve? You just mentioned a couple, right? Like, hey, I point something out. I give them their name and say, I thought about you specifically when I did this. This is one person though. So how do you broadly create that culture, and how do you lead on that front?
So Jeff, I think having been a campus principal, it helps with this because I've sat in the role of being a principal, and every role in education is really hard. But when you're a campus principal and you know, your state scores are going to be posted, like your name's posted there as the campus principal, like it is extremely stressful and it's scary to try new things, right? And so through the lens of being a campus principal, I told them, let's try new things. Like if it doesn't work, then let's adjust it. But let's think about some new ideas. Like we're going to have to think outside the box on how to do these things. And so as a campus principal, I celebrated people trying new things. And so as people saw that, like, hey, when you try new things, like she's willing for us to try new things, let's take ideas. And if it doesn't work, no one's in trouble. Like we'll just talk about reflection on, okay, well, it didn't go well. Like what could we do differently next time? Right. And so it's that continuous cycle of let's try something. If it doesn't go well, let's get some honest feedback. And then what can we do differently? And so as a campus principal, that was really important to me. And then I had teachers trying really great, amazing things in the classrooms, and they started seeing student success. And so, did
that happen right out of the gate? Did that happen just because you said it, or did you kind of have to coach people into it?
You have to coach. You have to build trust. You have to, again, start planting seeds. So it may not happen with one grade level or two grade levels. It may have happened just, for me, it really happened within 2 grade levels. And then as the years progressed, like more people, as staff changed and moved grade levels, people were like, yeah, try it. She doesn't, if we go to her with an idea and we're willing to try it and do it consistently for a while, and then we'll come back and reflect, like, she's open to it. Like, let's go with ideas. And so again, having that dialogue and that conversation led to some innovative things that we did. But again, you have to build the trust. And as people start seeing other people being celebrated and seeing them try new things, and they're like, well, I want to try that now too. And it sometimes is a shiny new toy. Like it may be new, shiny little iPad or something that was in there. And they're like, well, how do I get one of those? And are you willing to do X, Y, and Z? And if they were, then yes, let's make it happen for you. And so then carrying that over into my role now. And again, I think supporting our campus administrators. So as I teach teachers new tools, I teach administrators new tools, because administrators, we have the power as administrators to kill things. Like if we don't really support our teachers in some things, like we have the ability to just shoot it down and people aren't going to be willing to try those things. So I want to take out some of the fear of our administrators. So training them on tools. Look at this really cool feature. Look at this new, look at how we could integrate this. Talk about how you could see teachers integrating this in their classrooms at your campus, and getting them excited and getting them willing to try it. Then what they do is I've got a teacher that I think can try this. And so then they're giving their staff permission to try things too and getting on board with things. So I think if we miss the administrators, then we're missing a key piece in creating that safe environment. Because if they go into a classroom and they see a teacher using that tool, I don't want it to be like, why are you using that tool? What's that tool for? I want them to already know about that tool. So when they see the teacher, they're like, okay, wow, let me see how they're integrating that in their classroom and let me celebrate that. And, we've got several our administrators are phenomenal. But I'm thinking of our junior high principals specifically, he wants to learn. And then he really has created, by building relationships, by being in those classrooms, that safe environment where people are willing to try all sorts of things on that campus. And, they still get results of students performing because students are engaged in their learning. So they're seeing that success as well. So I think, again, building relationships and trust is absolutely key. And you're going to know that it's not going to be everyone jumping on board at first. It's going to take some time, But as people start getting excited, like that first year of our mini conference, Jeff, I was begging people to present. Like I was going around. I'm like, I really want you to present on this. And I really want you for this. I mean, I was pulling people in to present, right? The very next year, after people saw their peers doing it and saw what it was like, I didn't have to go pull people anymore.
Awesome.
Because they were excited to go do it. So again, creating that trust, that safe environment, training our administrators on what the purpose is and how not only can this technology help their classroom teachers, there's some technology like AI that will help administrators with their work. So how can this help you? How can you use this in your professional development and trainings with teachers to model this with them? Because if our principals are modeling that, then teachers are going to be willing to try it as well. So I think that's often a key piece that's missed is that, oh, well, they're just the principal. Well, no, the principal needs to be on board too, and at least be aware and knowledgeable of these tools and how they can help student learning or how this innovative idea can support student learning. So that way they can support and encourage their teachers.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying at a principal level in particular, don't take things to the no committee as often as you feel like doing it. I hear people sometimes say that principals are really good at taking things to the no committee. It's like, no, not going to do that. Be open and create a space where people can embrace that. And if you, as the principal, as the leader, are willing to hear out those ideas, then that can create and foster an environment of innovation. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And Jeff, I'm going to tell you, there was a time I told a team no. They came to me with an idea for several years.
Okay.
And I knew that our community probably wasn't ready for that innovation yet. They wanted to change how we did kindergarten student placement. You know, at the beginning of the year, kindergarten's the grade level that you don't know the kids. So they're randomly put in classrooms, right? And so it's kind of like the lottery every year for teachers. Like you never know, like you might get that class that you're going to be crying come like the second week of school. And so, and as a principal, that was so heartbreaking because like new teachers, like it burned out new teachers. Like, how do you support them? Like when they do have that challenging class. So my kindergarten team kept coming to me. They're like, we really want to do a different way of doing kindergarten placement. We want to do this thing kind of like a kinder camp where they don't necessarily assign a teacher the first couple of days of school. Let's get to know the kids. And then we do class placement. And so I did tell them no for a couple of years because I knew that we as a community weren't at that point to trust to try that yet. And, you know, we had a newer superintendent and I was like, I need to have some ducks in a row before we try that level of innovation. Cause that is a whole new world of like doing things like not done before. But then there was a time that I was like, yes, let's do it. And we did it and we loved it and we had great results from it. And, it was amazing to see the students and the teachers, and even my own personal child was in it that year. And so I got to see it as a mom, and it was phenomenal. But sometimes as administrators, we have to say no because we have to know where our community is at or where the state of things are at. But I'm with you. Like we have to at least sit down and listen and truly ask questions and consider things without just saying no.
Right. And sometimes no is just not yet, which is what you're pointing at. Right. And I think that's an important principle. One of the things that we hear a lot in this recent wave of the science of reading and the tremendous amount of emphasis on phonological skills and, you know, the componentry of reading is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade teachers that have students that are multiple grade levels behind and need phonological skills, right? They need some of that. And they're like, I'm a 7th grade lit teacher. Like, I don't know how to teach that. So how is there anything that you guys do? Can you talk about any innovations around how do you help with that? Or any particular thoughts on that? It's just something we hear a lot of, the challenge that's out there.
Oh, it's definitely a challenge out there. And I think that just like in the state of Texas, our elementary teachers had to go through something called the Reading Academy, right? And so they had very specific, intensive training, but it stopped at a certain grade level. And you're right, like the intermediate and upper grades didn't necessarily have that training. And so for us, we do have reading interventionists that use, a program to facilitate that small group instruction. So they're using a person to help instruct the students on those skills.
Got it.
Because those are so foundational. Like, we've got to make sure that they have that mastered, so that way they can start making the progress that we're wanting them to make in the classroom. And so, if we don't have interventionists, then we have to think as leaders, how are we going to then give our teachers the training or necessary tools on how to do that? And we've got to build in time. And, my belief is, I really strongly encourage like having a enrichment tutorial time, where kids get what they need. And so, in some schools I've worked with, like they build in a 30-minute block during their school day. Right. And so if a student is that far behind in reading, then they should be going to a teacher to work on those skills specific for what they need. And, Jeff, that's where we have to get creative. Do we send somebody for training? Do we hire? Maybe we hire somebody that has taught those levels, that has that skill set, that can then pull those students and work on those targeted skills with them. Like, we have to think outside the box and be creative on how are we ensuring that students are getting that support. And there might be a computer program out there that works well for our students that we have data for, and so maybe it's that they're going to get that intervention for that time. Right. But, Jeff, like, good instruction can never be replaced. And if we expose our students to grade level instruction, they're going to start making progress as well. And so we just have to add some tools in their toolbox. And so I think as leaders, we have to be very intentional to building that time and then making sure to give our teachers the tools in their toolbox to be able to reach those students. So if we know that that's a high need, then how are we supporting our teachers? Are we training them? Are we giving them the resources that will help them with that? It just doesn't happen by magic. Like, we all know there's a lot behind there. Like, our elementary teachers, they all, they had some wow moments during their trainings, and so, we may not be required by the state to train our secondary teachers, but, I think we have a responsibility to them to make sure that we're giving them the right tools to be able to do that in their classrooms.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that education is home to some of the most magical moments in life, and none of it's done with magic. It's all done with hard work and specialized skills and training on that. So that's great. Let's talk one quick topic that is interestingly controversial in some places. So I'm gonna ask you to ride along with me here. You are over technology and innovation. We talked about not using technology for technology's sake, but leveraging it where it is. What is Hallsville's take on personal device use inside of a building? Obviously, this is more impactful at middle, junior, and high school level. You go all the way across the country, and there's legislative action being taken around it. There's yonder pouches out there. There's like, how do you guys think about it? What's the effect been? Is there a framework or policy in place, or are you still working on that, or is it just depend on the building? Where are you guys on that?
So, obviously elementary, like, they're not using their personal devices in the classroom.
Pretty easy there, right?
Not going to be brought out. My daughter's at intermediate level, and again, their devices don't come out. Like, they are allowed to have them in their bags, but they stay. We have Chromebooks in every one of our classrooms. So if our students need access to technology, like, we have the devices in every single classroom that they enter. The high school, theirs is that students are not supposed to be using them. But I have seen some teachers use some things in an innovative way. So, for example, we had a math teacher before winter break that almost all the kids have TikTok, right? And so she gave them problems, and they had to find TikTok videos to help them learn how to solve those problems. Well, the funny thing is so they're all in class, right? Searching for these different videos on how to solve and do these math problems. It changed their algorithm. So when they left her class later that evening, what was showing up on their feed?
All of the reels were just math problems. It's genius.
Yeah. I mean, so she found a way to use their technology, but most of the teachers, like, again, like, if they have their students using devices, they have them using their Chromebooks.
Got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate the indulgence there. It's a very fun topic to talk about across the country here. We could talk forever about this. There's so many fun things to talk about, but I'll ask you one final question.
Okay.
Give me the Danieli crystal ball view of the next 5 to 10 years of where are we going? What are some things that you're like, yeah, this is going to be here. It's here to stay. It's going to be great in 10 years from now. And maybe something that you're like, man, I hope that's not here in 10 years. That would be great if we got rid of that.
Oh, I would love for standardized tests to go away.
Right? That one's
I would
easy.
love to see authentic learning like taking place. I would love to see worksheets disappearing. Like I want kids to be doing authentic work and collaboration. The workforce, even now, isn't just necessarily sitting down and just solving problems by yourself. There's so much collaboration and working with others and, the opportunities to work independently by yourself. And so I would love, in my world, I would love to see innovative classrooms get rid of student desks. Let's have collaboration centers. Let's have exploring. Let's have integration of skills and meaningful practice. With AI out there now, I think education is changing so much. And I recently saw a 60-minute segment where they were talking about AI, and it was a high school that was using AI kind of as a tool. And the teacher, students were able to use the tutor, and then the teacher was able to go around and monitor like where were struggles, but students were getting immediate feedback. And so I love the fact that we can use technology in ways, and my hope, my dream is that we can continue to see technology help provide that feedback. There's even devices now that you can draw. It'll tell you to draw the lungs on a human body. And if you don't draw it in the right place, it'll say, no, that's not correct. Or, it gives student immediate feedback. And so I think that's going to be exciting to see where does that go in the next 5 to 10 years. But I still want to see classrooms coming to life with students engaged in meaningful work. And I would love for them to be celebrated for their critical thinking and thinking outside the box, and not so much about did they get the right answer, but about their journey in the learning process. Like, let's start celebrating failures and growth from that failures. Because right now we're still so married to our grades. We're still married so much to, did I get the right answer, that it's limiting our thinking. And I would love to see classrooms that we celebrate failure and we use those as learning opportunities and not as punishment of kids on their grades or I want kids to receive the accolades when they master it and to get that celebration and to be in a place where their creativity is celebrated and is utilized to help them in their learning journey. Like, we're not trying to create everybody to be identical thinkers, but how can we help them be who they're supposed to be? And, I think it's sad. Kids come into kindergarten with a high level of creativity, but we kill it because they want to get things right. And so how do we stop doing that and create classrooms that embrace creativity and that individualism and still make it manageable for our teachers because they're one person, right? And so we have to think about how do we work collaboratively as teams? It's not just my classroom, but these are all of our kids. So how do we work together collaboratively to foster this type of learning environment so that students get what they need to be successful?
Yeah, no, that's an important part of this. Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Parker, for joining me today and having a conversation about literacy and literacy mindset from the perspective of an innovation and technology lens in Hallsville ISD. I really appreciate you being on the show.
If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help students by identifying and removing phonological barriers at mindplay.com.